Another day is here, and you're ready for it. What to wear? Check. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner? Check. Planning for what's next and how to save for it? That's where Bank of America can help. For your financial to-dos, Bank of America has experts ready to help get you closer to your goals. Get started at one of our local financial centers or 24/7 in our mobile banking app. Find a location near you at bankofamerica.com/talktous. What would you like the power to do? Mobile banking requires downloading the app and is only available for select devices. Message and data rates may apply. Bank of America N.A., member FDIC.
This episode is brought to you by Honda. When you test drive the all-new Prologue EV, there's a lot that can impress you about it. There's the class-leading passenger space, the clean, thoughtful design, and the intuitive technology. But out of everything, what you'll really love most is that it's a Honda. Visit honda.com/EV to see offers.
Ryan Reynolds here for, I guess, my 100th Mint commercial. No, don't. I mean, honestly, when I started this, I thought I only have to do like 4 of these. I mean, it's unlimited premium wireless for $15 a month. How are there still people paying 2 or 3 times that much? I'm sorry, I shouldn't be victim blaming here. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/save. Whenever you're ready.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See details.
Thanks for choosing this free Anfield Index podcast. If you'd prefer to listen to this or any of our other shows without adverts, then now's the time to check out Anfield Index Pro. With AI Pro, you can supercharge your entire listening experience. You'll not only get all of our podcasts without the ads, but you'll have them far faster with our Quick Publish feature available exclusively for subscribers. AI Pro also puts you in the heart of our sound studio, with an option to listen to many of our shows live and interact with the podcasters in real time as the shows are recording. Upgrading couldn't be easier. AI Pro is available on all popular podcast platforms. Just head on over to AnfieldIndexPro.com and get started today.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Media Matters. No, it's not Dave Davis, it's me. I have crawled out of my cave. When Liverpool make a significant signing, I'm going to pay attention to it. And if Michael Edwards thinks he's going to run away and pull a worldie off like Zubimendi, then I've got to raise my game. And today it's an absolute honour. I am bringing you an absolute superstar in terms of journalism, in football knowledge. It's been long overdue. It's Mr. Graham Hunter. Welcome to the show, Graham.
Happy to be back with you.
It's so good. I mean, like, I thought I wouldn't be podcasting with you again, but hey, Liverpool have done something here. So, I'm sure you've heard of the news, Graham Zubimendi. So, the news from here is basically Liverpool are going to buy a number 6. There wasn't a name. Yesterday, a name dropped. It was Zubimendi. Ornstein dropped the name. Last night, another potential bombshell that at first it was all about, Liverpool have made contact with Real Sociedad, but it's up to the player. So it was all up in the air whether or not Liverpool will the player agree to join. Last night, Ornstein drops another bombshell saying, Real Sociedad have confirmed the player would be likely or keen to move. What is the news from the Spanish perspective, La Liga perspective? What have you heard that might be different?
Well, listen, you're used to my salty, cynical tones.
I enjoyed them.
When this fella, who I've never met, David Ornstein, sort of said, Sociedad sources, I thought, well, I'm sorry, David, but I immediately doubt you because nobody calls them Sociedad. It's La Real or Chuli Ordin. Let me ignore David Ornstein for the moment, please, Nina.
Yes, of course.
Martin Zubimendi is an organising midfielder at La Real who has perpetually said, I don't want to leave. I don't want to go anywhere. Mm-hmm. This is my club. He's not a rarity, but he's one of the few players born in San Sebastian, the city where the club is based, who feels the colours through and through, and who has been courted successive seasons by Barcelona, particularly by Xavi before he was removed, and consistently said to them, I'm not coming. I don't want to go. Barcelona began to prepare for the departure of Busquets by making eyes at Zubimendi. Then when Busquets left, they came in hard, and the player said, no thanks. You already know, I'm sure, because you do your research properly, that this is a player who's contracted until the end of the 27 season, 26-27. And he has, as I think almost every Spanish player or players based in La Liga do, he has a buyout clause of 60 million euros. That's written into his contract.
Yeah.
And that's the situation, whereby if a club comes in and triggers that, it says that they will pay the 60 million euros to La Liga, which is a holding office. The money then goes to the club that owns the player. It then becomes something that the club with the player's registration can't do anything about. It's then wholly down to the player. Now, it might interest you, maybe you know already, that Zubimendi's hero is and has always been Xabi Alonso. He shares a representative with Xabi Alonso. At least the last time I saw Xabi Alonso doing business and moving, he was represented by an agency which controls a number of footballers at La Real. It's called IDUB. Most specifically, Iñaki Ibanez is the part of that company who represents Zubimendi. Now, until this point, and in fact, I was with Spain every day of the Euro, and there's a whole series of interviews that go on from interested media who've travelled with Spain, who stay with Spain in a great big media tent on the training ground, SV Ashen's training ground down in the Black Forest. And one of the players I interviewed was Zubimendi. We'll come back to that in a minute maybe, but the Diario Vasco, which just means the Basque daily newspaper, if you translate it, interviewed Zubimendi during the Euro. I think it was in June, not July. At which point he said, I will be staying at La Real this season. I don't want to move. That should, in normal world, be definitive. But in all the chats you and I have ever had, and I suppose every time you assess a potential managerial move, once you were thinking about the departure of your club, or once you assess players that come and go from Anfield, in football, even phrases like that aren't necessarily definitive. But I want to emphasise that over the course of recent seasons, Zubimendi has repeatedly said, I don't want to go anywhere else. This is my club, the club that I care for, not just the one I'm contracted to. And as recently as the Euros,
he was being linked to Arsenal as well, wasn't he? There was big links to Arsenal as well.
The thing I don't like, is this linking means that not you, but if we start talking about links, then we accept that any old idiot who makes something up is worthy of consideration, and that's bullshit or not. Where I think it becomes interesting is that Xabi Alonso made a similar decision. They're by no means identical footballer and definitely not identical men, but they play in a similar position. They were born a very short distance from one another. La Real is very much Xabi Alonso's club, as it is for Martin Zubimendi. The truth is that this is an offer, a move that will make him stop and think, I imagine. It's something that he can easily consult Xabi Alonso about because they have this shared relationship. Remember, Xabi Alonso coached Martin Zubimendi.
Yes.
Again,
yes.
It's one of the things, Nina, that I asked Zubimendi about during the Euro when I interviewed him, and he said that Alonso had been a man who he felt it, one, it had been a privilege to be coached by his hero, and two, he viewed him as somebody who had taught him that when you impose yourself as an organising midfielder, it isn't simply all about what you want to do. And Zubimendi used the phrase, I used to go out and just think I would impose my game. And Xabi Alonso taught me two things. One, to study and to be ready for a specific opponent, how they like to play. And two, to try to be more press resistant. Now, Zubimendi moved up pretty quickly after his final season of being coached by Xabi Alonso into the first team. And at La Real last season, I think his stand-up qualities would be Number one, he played almost every game. He played all 8 of the Champions League matches. He played 6 of the 7 cup matches. And he played 31 out of 38 league matches for La Real. And that it adds to the second thing that stood out. But last season, La Real had horrendous injury problems. And almost everybody missed considerable amounts of time. But basically not Zubimendi. Always there. Even in sort of skeleton teams when injuries and suspension and tiredness were really hitting home because of their Champions League campaign, Zubimendi was always there. I think he really stood out, Nina, and it won't surprise me if Liverpool scouts and Arne are thinking predominantly about how he played in the Champions League last season. La Real topped the group, in which there were Inter and Benfica, and La Real played pretty well against Paris Saint-Germain in stretching the French champions. And I know that Luis Enrique Martinez, the PSG coach, was particularly impressed with the way in which La Real pressed PSG and how organised they were. And Zubimendi stood out in those 2 games. So what I'm trying to paint is a picture whereby I understand why Liverpool might want this footballer. I think it's realistic for people listening to that to know that this is not a deal where Liverpool simply go in, snap the fingers, and a player starts dribbling at the mouth going, this is what I've been waiting for, I'm out here. Yeah. It is feasible that I think Liverpool can afford €60 million buyout clause, but I think La Real will insist on that. I think they'll say, we're not letting this fella go until you pay the specified amount in the contract. And I
believe it has to be the full amount as well. That's what the articles are saying, that Liverpool have to pay the full amount up front.
The buyout clause, there's no fractions or full amounts. The buyout clause is the buyout clause. You cannot trigger a rescission clause unless you pay everything and you pay it in one go. It goes to La Liga, and La Liga is a brokerage, and they move that money on once the player, any player, never mind Zubimendi, any footballer who has a buyout clause, the club that wants to trigger that clause pays all of money into La Liga. La Liga acts as a brokerage, and once the player says yes or no, normally it's a fait accompli, because the clubs who want to trigger a rescission clause, a buyout clause, don't send that money to La Liga unless on the sly, behind closed doors, they've had a yes from the footballer, I'm going to accept. So, effectively, that's what we're, I think, probably Iñaki Ibanez. There are 2 other players like Peo Uralde and Vicente Berun who work in IDOB that may be involved in this, but your central figure is Iñaki Ibanez. And it might be that they're a broker house for letting Liverpool send messages to Zubimendi, and it may be that Xabi Alonso, quietly off the record, might be consulted by Zubimendi in terms of, I have my own ideas. What do you recommend that I do? So it's an interesting plot, for absolutely sure. And I'll feed you one little bit as well, because when I spent the summer with Spain, I was in a fortunate position to have over 50 interviews with players and staff. One of the interviews I had was with Luis de la Fuente, the Spain coach who won the Euro, and who'd coached Zubimendi at under-21 level too. And in fact, I'd given him his full debut. The thing I asked him was, what changed in Spain's performance after halftime against England? My point was that it seemed that England's press dropped a little bit. It seemed that Spain, the goal side, set them aside, that Spain were able to penetrate England a lot more. And they showed absolutely no road bump at the loss of Rodri.
Yeah.
Potentially, arguably the best footballer in the world. In my opinion, he should be the Ballon d'Or winner, player of the tournament in this Euro, player of the tournament last summer in the Nations League with Spain won. And Luis de la Fuente said to me, well, excuse me for pointing this out, but I'm hugely fortunate in that Rodri is the best organising midfielder in the world. And he said, in my opinion, I have the second best organising midfielder in the world in my squad. I brought him on, and His name is Martin Zubimendi. Now, I've never heard anybody be that effusive about Zubimendi, to say he's the second best.
To Rodri. I mean, Liverpool fans, Anfield Index, the subscribers are probably like, oh my God, because this is what we always talk about. Rodri is so good. Rodri is world class. We need a player like Rodri. That is, that is the level that Liverpool fans are aspiring to.
Or the difference is, I would start pointing out, because I'm not technically in a position to. I mean, I often put fault with and argue with the elite coaches because I have a strong opinion and a strong sense of my own ability to argue out cases like this. But I'm not going to. I'm not technically qualified to go against what Luis de la Fuente said. But I will describe to you I'm just being honest and, for once, a little bit humble. But I will point out differences that I think it's important. You ask me these questions, and you ask other people these questions because you want your readers to have foreknowledge of a player that they probably haven't studied, probably haven't watched that much.
Yeah, I'm coming to you from that angle. I'm not going to lie and say I've watched an awful lot of Real Sociedad. That is not true. No. This is the angle of somebody educating us and us to become knowledgeable.
Well, the thing I'm pointing out that I think is worthwhile knowing is that it was De La Fuente. I didn't ask him about Zubimendi. He offered that comparison up. He offered up that praise of Zubimendi. Now, there are significant differences. First of all, by the time Rodri went to City, he was significantly more experienced and played more European football. Even though Rodri has put on a significant amount of muscle, I would say maybe 10 or 11 kilos of muscle, and is a beast of a footballer as well as a brilliant brain and hugely competitive. Zubimendi physically is very different. He's about 5'9", maybe verging on 5'10". He's quite light, and at 24, he's had a couple of European seasons, but only one Champions League season.
This episode is brought to you by our good friends at NFL Sunday Ticket on YouTube TV. I'm sure by now you've all gotten back into your Sunday routines, but they could be even better. With NFL Sunday Ticket and YouTube TV, you get the most live NFL games all in one place, every game, every Sunday, and you can even watch up to 4 different games at once with multi-view, one of my favorite inventions of this decade. It's exactly what you need to catch all the action, make your Sundays more magical, and also, YouTube TV is great. I got it this year. It's awesome. Sign up now at youtube.com/BS. Device and content restrictions apply. Local and national games on YouTube TV. NFL Sunday Ticket for out-of-market games excludes digital-only games.
This episode is brought to you by Experian. Are you paying for subscriptions you don't use but can't find the time or energy to cancel them? Experian could cancel unwanted subscriptions for you, saving you an average of $270 per year and plenty of time. Download the Experian app. Results will vary. Not all subscriptions are eligible. Savings are not guaranteed. Paid membership with connected payment account required.
And therefore, my strong opinion is that Zubimendi's technical abilities, his brain, his character, all these are, you put a tick in the box. In terms of his physical readiness should be a dominant footballer in the Premier League. There's work to be done. I don't know how Liverpool's owners and how their budget managers consider an outlay of 60 million. But were to say, yes, I'm coming, and were Liverpool to trigger that clause and pay the 60 million euros, not pounds, then I would only counsel anybody listening to this not to expect that there's a tailor-made Premier League football strolling into the side and bossing the centre of the midfield. Technical terms, vision, attitude, characters maybe the same as personality. These things are, in my opinion, are all there. And I think that he is a player of great potential at only 24. But maybe everybody listening, because I know how successful you are, maybe everybody listening goes, we don't expect in a 24-year-old Spaniard that we're buying in the finished article. Maybe everybody's ready for the fact that there would need to be patience and there would need to be physical development. He would do a lot of gym work. One of the other comparisons as well as Rodri would be when David De Gea, I know the other side of the fence from you guys, but when he arrived from Atletico Madrid, they laughed at Manchester United. He was a beanpole. Yeah,
I remember my mum is a Manchester United fan, and when they got him, because I watched a lot of Atletico Madrid, and she's like, "What is this kid? He's stepping in for Mandazar," and she was absolutely disgusted with him. I was like, "You are going to mince your words," and lo and behold, he's a child as well, and he's like his scapegoat.
He's a beanpole.
Yes, he was.
And they work so hard on his physique that eventually he became a crucial player for Manchester United. Rodri, I pointed out, has changed immensely in physical terms. And therefore, that's a path that Zubimendi would need to go down. Nobody should have any qualms about that whatsoever. So I think the key thing about everything, because there are obvious times when Liverpool come in for football and football goes, you beauty, this is everything I've dreamed of. I'm immediately ready. We can haggle a little bit with the wages, but I'm on the next plane. Zubimendi might end up pulling on a red strip instead of blue and white stripes, but it's a different story. I'm arguing that there's still a minor possibility, and I do admit it's minor, that he says, I'm staying where I love to play. I'm staying at the club I love. That's possible. It's clear that an opportunity like this, with an influence like Xabi Alonso in his mind, either whether they speak or not, simply the fact that Xabi Alonso followed a similar path, and he's very much somebody who Zubimendi styles himself on. So, and clearly, listen, I'm not painting Zubimendi as a saint. The wages will be significantly different if he becomes a Liverpool player than they are at La Real. La Real will insist on the buyout clause for a couple of reasons. One, they've already lost a Euro winner in Robin Lenormand, who's moved to Atletico Madrid. They had come to an agreement with Mikel Merino, who's 4 or 5 years, maybe 4 years older than Zubimendi, that if there was a big profit coming in, they do not want to lose Merino, but they were willing to negotiate. And they had it in their minds that because they earned a huge amount of money from the Champions League last season, these coming months, when UEFA begin to pay out on last season's Champions League participation, La Real will receive more money than they have ever received in their history. So they are not a selling club. It's not the case that they need the money. In fact, what they look at right now is if they were to lose Lenormand and Zubimendi and Merino, there's the real dismantling of the heart of the team. And that's an appalling prospect for a side that's got a taste of Champions League football. So I would understand enthusiasm around Liverpool at the idea of Zubimendi. My caution is, look out. It won't necessarily be that simple. And secondly, if it goes through, this is a player still in development. Nobody should make any mistakes about that.
It's really interesting that you mentioned that, development. And I think, what happened last season was, of course, you'll know Fabinho, who looked broken and tired the previous season that he left. And we bring in Endo, an unknown quantity from the Bundesliga. And he did an okay job, a solid, 6 out of 10 player. He was a defensive midfielder. He did what he did. And I think what Liverpool fans are absolutely crying for here, it's very different, right? Because we've got a new manager. And if this was Jurgen Klopp we were talking about, we'd be like, absolutely, he would be allowed to work like he did with Fabinho, Robertson as well. He kept them away from the limelight, let them develop, let them naturally grow in. We do have a player in Endo, so it might be, and I think Arne Slot has a similar kind of philosophy. I definitely think that Liverpool will be willing to let him kind of get strong, be patient. Liverpool supporters are like that as well. They'll know that. I think what really excites me and what you've said was the fact that the squad was completely injured last season, and he was one that was always available. And Liverpool fans will go down memory lane with me here, but there was a player that was always available, and we were solid when we had this player in Gini Wijnaldum. Being available is such an underrated quality, especially last season. We were absolutely riddled with injuries. I mean, that in itself, I'm thinking that, the stats nerds and at Anfield were probably looking at that and thinking, you know what, that's the kind of player that we want. That's what we're missing. And, I think physically, Liverpool will give him the chance. And again, I'm really, interested with my chat with you because you were speaking from the angle of the player absolutely said he does not want to leave Real Sociedad. Now, me as a football purist absolutely loves that idea where people want to stay with their clubs that they love. But I'm here as a Liverpool supporter and I'm thinking, please leave because obviously I'd like you to come to Liverpool. And on our side, and Graham, and I know you'll appreciate from the Liverpool point of view as well, like there's a new structure being brought back. Edwards is back. We've got Hughes. They've been very, very, very quiet on the transfer front. This isn't the Ian Ayre days. And when they kind of announce something, it normally means that things are moving and the wheels are very much in motion. So again, it's just one of those where we're going to have to wait and see. I think Liverpool fans are probably sat here and thinking, for Liverpool to leak such a thing, because I'd like to think we're quite a well-run club in many regards. Even the Arne Slot thing, no one knew about it till, one day where it broke and then everyone ran with it. I just feel like, it looks very, very likely it's going to happen. I mean, you mentioned that Barcelona we're trying to replace Busquets with this guy. And again, I suppose that's maybe they were looking like him to fill a void. I mean, how would you describe him in terms of a player and like the Liverpool system? How do you see him working well? I mean, would he work well in a double pivot? I mean, how do you get the best out of Zubimendi, given the fact that he is a player that's going to grow and obviously he needs to do some work?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's a good question. I think that, so for example, his first game for Spain, which wasn't his senior debut because it was on their coupled together friendly, came just before the last Euro, which had been delayed, and therefore Spain were playing training at home in Las Rosas in Madrid, and there was an outbreak of COVID prior to the tournament, and the then manager Luis Enrique had to draft in, I think it would be as many as 17 or 18 players. And Zubimendi was one of them. He hadn't been in Spain's squad for that Euro 2020, which took place in 21. But because Busquets was one of those who was in quarantine, Zubimendi was brought in and played in Busquets' position for Spain in a friendly match that they won handsomely against. I'm sorry to say, I can't remember. But he's a footballer who certainly plays as a pivot. Now, people sometimes call that number 6 or whatever, organising midfielder. His role is extremely similar to the one that Busquets played. He's neither as tall as Busquets, and Busquets was extraordinary. I mean, off the scale good.
Yeah.
An historic footballer, not just in Spanish, but in world and European terms.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to give people false expectations of saying the guy who immediately you say, there's a Busquets, that's Busquets. His attitudes and his ideas with the ball are similar. So, for example, I think he's good at being in the right place in the press. I don't think he's necessarily physically imposing enough to make people say, well, we've got a ferocious ball-winning beast in the middle. That would be unfair. But his ideas about where to be in the press and how to support other players when the team doesn't have the ball are very good and very clear. When he wins the ball, his idea is always to make the right pass. He's not a frantic footballer who's always, once the ball is won back or he's given the possession, who's always looking to play the ball forward. He's nor is he somebody by any means who's looking to have possession for possession's sake and slow things down. That would be an inaccurate description of him. His coach, Manuel Alguacil, somebody who feels exactly the same about the club as Zubimendi does. Alguacil adores Villarreal and is an out-and-out fan, more of a fan even than you would say he's the manager. But he wants the ball played in a way that resembles how Spain played the ball forward during the Euro, which is vertical, not direct, nothing long, but vertical. So Zubimendi is used to playing in a team whereby They want to have quick transitions. They want to be able to get the ball wide quite quickly. They want to catch other teams a bit undressed. And therefore, what you've got is a footballer whose brain is always in action. He's a smart lad. I had a shot there. I had a shot at his age. I said 24. I'm rethinking it. I might be wrong. He might be 25. You talked about durability. At 25, he's played very close to 250 senior games. I think that's not only quite a good total that speaks well of how his coaches have always thought about him, but I think, again, if you played nearly 250 senior games at age 25, I think you're, again, a reasonably durable man in terms of availability and, I don't want to curse him, but ability to avoid injuries. So you're buying, if you succeed in this, you're buying intelligence. You're buying somebody with the decent peripheral vision. You're not buying somebody, for example, who, again, okay, let's make this comparison. I interviewed Rodri during the Euro, and he talked about he said his exact phrase, was, goal scoring is not my responsibility. But if you have the capacity to score goals, then you have the responsibility to do it as often as you can. And I think that's a neat summation of what an organising midfielder, a pivot, should be thinking about. Goals are not the pivot's responsibility. But if you do have that capacity, then, and Rodri said, I've been working on it. I want to be more influential in the final third. I want to score more goals and give more assists. And 2 days later, he walked out and scored that equalising goal against Georgia, which had the whole bench running off, including Zubimendi, running onto the pitch to celebrate a 1-1 goal against Georgia, which was an extraordinary sight, and talked a little bit about how tense the situation was.
And let's not forget, Rodri scored the winning Champions League goal. He
did that too. But I'm drawing the comparison because Zubimendi is not in that category yet.
Yeah.
His goals are rare. I'm reaching here, so don't condemn me if I'm wrong, but I think he's only just into double figures for his career in terms of goals scored.
I don't need a VPN. I've got nothing to hide. This is what I used to tell myself before I hooked up with LibertyShield.com. Not only is my home internet now fully encrypted, but I can now access all the websites I want, whenever I want, and do so from absolutely anywhere. As a Liverpool fan, I love to know I can now watch every match, regardless of whether it's on UK TV or not. My Liberty Shield VPN makes sure nothing is blocked and guarantees me super fast streaming speed throughout that match. You can get connected right now with their software package, which includes a 48-hour no-obligation free trial and instant access to their apps for Apple, Android, Fire TV, PC, Mac and Android TV. Or go a step further like I have and get one of their pre-configured VPN routers. These small but powerful devices allow you to easily connect every device in your home to VPN, making it the perfect solution for smart TVs, Mac boxes and games consoles. Visit LibertyShield.com today and use coupon code AIVPN25 to get 25% off at checkout.
I would argue that he's not been asked to contribute. I would argue that he has been asked to be a relatively deep-lying pivot. You asked a question that I'm sorry I forgot to answer properly. Do I think, I don't know if Liverpool have or under slot intend to play double pivot, but I could imagine that would certainly, depending on who's next to him, if there was somebody who was happy to be in harness with the other player maybe being a little bit more physically powerful, perhaps having first responsibility for the press tackle, then Zubimendi, in terms of taking the ball and when it's a divided ball or a loose ball, and then beginning the transitions quickly and intelligently, I could see that in his early days helping him function and impose himself more quickly. My humble opinion would be that if Liverpool were playing a 4-3-3 and the pivot was flanked by attacking midfielders either side, and that were to be Zubimendi in a given future, that's where I think that the physical transformation of needing to be press resistant in a different way than Xabi Alonso taught him at Real Sociedad B, because in those instances, Xabi Alonso was talking about anticipating where the press came from, picking passes better, understanding and researching the team before you went out there, and therefore guessing what they were going to try to do to you. The press resistance that I think he would need to develop if he was a single pivot in a 4-3-3 situation would be that he's physically stronger. So, that's something that gym work can change. I think would need to change. The Premier League and La Liga are significantly different. What La Liga, in my opinion, has constantly had over the Premier League and practically any other league in the world is football technique, strategic brains, and just tactical intelligence. And Zubimendi has those three things.
Not a bad thing. I mean, you're speaking about midfielders, and I'm thinking about, Liverpool's midfielders. And of course, we've got the youngster in Bajcetic, who has been injured most of last season. I'm sure, you know a little about Bajcetic as well. He looks like a youth.
He looks phenomenal.
Yeah, I want to keep an eye out. I think the future looks really bright for Spain. I mean, it's already looking great for them, but yeah, we've got him. I think there's a lot of chit-chat on Anfield Index and just on social media discourse about maybe a double pivot with him and McAllister. It's going to be very interesting to see what Slot does with him if he comes. But I love the fact that you said these are all the things that he's got great. And I think with Liverpool, you said he's not going to score an awful lot of goals. I think one of the things why we were really, really crying for a number 6, a holding midfielder, was because our defence looked really leaky when Fabinho wasn't on his best game. We just need somebody just to kind of be a presence in front of that. That is I think defensively, I think that's where we kind of need the work. And I think when I look back at Liverpool and all the times when they've looked like a dominant force, we had Mascherano, and then we lost him, of course, to Barcelona. And then we had over a decade of not having a proper kind of holding midfielder. And, we looked very average, and we were average. We have to state how it is. And then we bring in Fabinho, and all of a sudden, Fabinho didn't contribute an awful lot to goals, but he was a presence in that midfield. But, again, like you said, Zubimendi will have to do some physical work. I also think the midfielders, that I think McAllister is going to be a great addition to him as well. So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens with this. I think patience is key. I think you've hit the nail on the head. I also like the fact that you kind of spoke about the physical element of the Premier League. But I'm a firm believer in, if you're smart and you read the game really well, regardless of the pace and the physicality, I think you get yourself out of tight spots. We saw that with, technically gifted players. Firmino wasn't the fastest, he wasn't the strongest, but he was just so intelligent. I know he's a forward and it's a different position, but I think, some players just naturally just read the game just so well. I mean, Busquets, he's played against English opposition in Champions League and he's absolutely bossed them. I think it's just a quality and an asset that Liverpool would really be looking at. I mean, any last parting words about Zubimendi? Anything you kind of want to get off your chest before we close this podcast? I know you're pressed for time. I know you're very busy, and we really appreciate you coming here and talking to us on Anfield Index. But any final takeaways? I think, you've given the great message of be patient with him, and I think that is important. I think Liverpool fans genuinely are.
If it's a last summation, I want to be sad because, I've lived in Spain for 22 years. I'm covering their La Liga's live matches on La Liga television. And if it's La Real without Zubimendi, I'll be sorry because I like watching him play. I was very conscious that even in this, which is far less physical and far less dynamic and up and out, I was conscious that even so, Zubimendi was in a process of development. The other side of the card would be I'd be excited because although Zubimendi at La Real is playing in a team which was capable of getting really nice results against Benfica and Roma and Inter in recent years, and they won the cup. He was part of a cup-winning side for La Real, them not having won a trophy for 40-something years. Even given all that, I was imagining that this would be a season where Zubimendi needed to come back from the Euro and raise his game because it's about that time in his life, it's about that time in his career. We're in the Olympics right now. Spain are in their final again. Last time the Olympics were played, he was a key footballer that took Spain all the way to the Olympic final. They lost to Brazil 2-1. So we're also talking about someone we haven't mentioned. He's an Olympic silver medalist. If he goes, I will feel a sense of loss. I don't like La Liga's gemstone players being taken away. But I would spend a lot of time watching him because I'd be excited for him. I'd be excited to see his development. I would be selfish and think that potentially Spain, the national team, might be beneficiaries of what Zubimendi learned if he joins Liverpool and goes to the Premier League. And there would areas of this game which aren't necessarily tested in La Liga would be tested. And the parting message that I'll leave you with is that while I still accept that there is a clear rationale for Zubimendi breaking what he's been saying as recently as June, which is, I'm not leaving. Because he didn't say just, I don't want to go. He said, I will play at La Real this season. I accept that there's a strong possibility that the specific temptations of Liverpool might win the day. I think it's one to watch really closely. He only came back to training about 2, maximum 3 days ago. He's been involved in the new kit launch for La Real. So I'm waiting now to see. I've given you my best summary of what I know to be true. And now we see what Zubimendi says, and just a pure human basis, not now. When men or women in sport, particularly, which is what I'm interested in, get given huge choices like this, normally they back themselves. Normally they say, wow, that challenge is huge, but I'm up for it. I'm capable of it. And there's I think a disturbing tendency for people to maybe be disparaging about those who turn an opportunity down. And it's become rare for footballers to say, my loyalty and my word remain untouched, even in the face of temptation. So I'm going to be watching really closely to see what happens with Ibanez, his agent, who will probably be more visible more quickly than Zubimendi. And then I want to hear what Zubimendi says, either why he's staying or how he describes the process of coming to a realization that he wants to go. Those are the things that I'm now waiting for. And I'll be fascinated to see how he explains his decision, whichever way it goes.
Well, there you have it, Reds. It looks like it's a cliffhanger, and again, we're all going to have to wait and watch. I mean,
good phrase. Good phrase.
Yeah, it absolutely is. But Graham, thank you so much for your time, for your insight, for blessing us with your knowledge. I'm sure a lot of us are so much better off for it now. Before I let you go, where can people find you on social media and, anything you'd like to plug?
And thank you for the opportunity. I enjoy writing for ESPN FC every week, which is going to start again for the new season next week. So people like to sometimes read about Spanish football, the Spanish national team on ESPN FC. I'd be delighted to see you there. And I'm at Bumper Graham on Twitter. Other than that, no, thank you. Very kind thought, but I have nothing to plug. Other than, please, everybody send goodwill up towards the mighty Aberdeen. You've loaned us a couple of players over the last several seasons. And Aberdeen are playing the first home game of the season this weekend at Pittodrie, having won on the road at St Johnstone. So you gave me a little window, which is very generous of you. Please don't cut it out, or if you do, never tell me. But the thing I want to plug is my undying love for Aberdeen Football Club. There you are, Nia.
We love it. We love it. And all the best for the season. And maybe it's our little, it's the club that we root for in the Scottish Premier League. Guys, thank you so much for listening. Hope you enjoyed that. There's more content coming your way on Anfield Index, so stay tuned for that. Once again, thank you for listening. A massive thank you to Graham. And that's me done. I might come out when it's actually official. Who knows? I might not. But guys, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Take care, and up the Reds.
We hope you enjoyed listening to this Anfield Index show. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel so future podcasts find their way to your device automatically. There's nothing quite like fan engagement, and we'd love to know what you think of anything discussed on this show. The best way to get in touch is over on our free Discord community, where both podcasters and listeners debate the hottest LFC topics 24/7. Sign up free now at AnfieldIndex.com/Discord. You won't regret it. You can also follow us on Twitter at Anfield Index and find us on Facebook by searching for Anfield Index. Oh, and before you go, we'd love it if you could leave us a 5-star review on your favourite podcast app. It only takes a couple of seconds, and it means the world to the people who create these free shows.
Sports Social Podcast Network.